Hello everyone, welcome to the database systems, week number 4, and this is the lecture video. The topic for this week is the database design concepts, and therefore I will go through the essential elements. My outline is following roughly the way it is shown in the Zybook, but I'll cover two major topics here, the tables and normalization. And then I'll mention a little bit about what's coming up in the future as are helpful tools. But the first item of the tables is that SQL Server Management Studio is a relational database management system. And what that means is that it is made up of tables, and the tables are how they are related. That makes the SQL Server Management Studio a relational database management system. And so we need to know about those tables. The table contains three things, three columns, I should say, and there's a data column, there's data type column, and there's data key column. And so let me demonstrate for you using the SQL Server table. So give me one sec. So this is the SQL Server Management Studio connecting to a SQL Server 2019. And here is a list of databases that I created as well as imported one. But let's take a look at the AdventureWorks 2019 database. And when you expand it, there are a whole bunch of tables that you will see. And tables that came with and tables that I made, right? So if I right click on this particular table and just select the top 1000 rows. See if it comes up in a sec. Takes a minute. And what you see is a automation of SQL script that performs the task that I asked, which is selecting the top 1000 rows of that table. And it renders for you here the data, right? So you can see, give me one second here. And so what you see is basically a data here out of this table. But if you click expand this particular table, there is a columns and there are keys, right? There's different columns, how they are, what they're made up on, their keys, and that describe these rows, how they would be arranged, which we'll talk about a little bit more, right? But anyway, what is not shown in this one is that there are data types that determine what kind of a data that it should be, right? So that's part of the design thing that we need to be mindful of, all right? So there are these columns that house the actual data, and then maybe one column would be a how these things would be ordered, right? Particularly using what we call the keys. And so, anyway, I just wanted to show you that example for you. Let's see here. So when we talk about these tables and the way the table is arranged and related, let me show you in visual diagram here. So if you click on this guy here, let me bring that up. So this is the web page that you will see here. But anyway, so these tables, this would be a table, and the way they are related is called cardinality. And this one says, you know, there's only one record here that's related to this, and it can be many or nothing. And there are different types of relationships. We will kind of get into that a little bit more in detail. So this one says one-to-many relationship. This is one-to-one relationship, one-to-one relationship over here. And then there is a many-to-many relationship, but I want you to remember that many-to-many relationship should be avoided, and therefore you need to resolve that so that there won't be a many-to-many relationship, because that's really confusing. And so we'll talk about how to resolve that. But anyway, those are different types of relationships that we need to establish. All right. But if you wanted to take a look at it, so how does that look like in the actual SQL Server? Let's bring up to you. So this is how the AdventureWorks database tables are related. It's really complicated to look at, right? So we usually don't do this, one at all in once. But as you can see, there are different schemas or sections of the database that we want to as a divide and conquer idea. So we'll talk more about it. But this kind of gives you how they are related and there are different keys. And this one doesn't show the data types that it's going to be using. But anyway, so this is a huge bird's eye view, and I gave you the link if you wanted to go take a look at them. All right. The other essential item in terms of database management and design is what's called a normalization, right? So this is a technique that is used to basically reduce the data redundancy and protect the data integrity. And data redundancy is particularly in relational database management system. You want to have a particular data in only one table. Like for example, if you have a social security in one table, you don't want that social security number in any other table, because if there are multiple places, you have to update them every time one is updated, right? So you don't want to do that. And if you have multiple places and their data is different for the same value, then the data is not only accurate, and therefore you get into a trouble that is data integrity fails, right? So anyway, so if you click on this here, let's see what you get. So this is I think one of the useful website that you can get to in terms of data normalization here. And this is like I said, this is a tool. This is used a lot in terms of the operational databases, and there are different levels that we want to do. It goes into a lot of details, but the basic idea is for you to make the data as small as possible in terms of table makeup, so that it is only in one place and not in any other places. And it goes into talk about primary key, and primary key is used to order the records in a table, and there are different types of keys that we can talk about. A foreign key is used to when it is related to another table, this is how you say this table is related to another table. All right, so we'll do a lot more in terms of how we actually do this, but I want you to have some concept of this, so wanted to give you a quick overview. Now when you actually want to do this, and we'll do this in the future weeks, we'll be using a tool called Lucidchart. And when you go to the Lucidchart, let's see if we can actually go there. Give me one second. So this is just what's coming up in the future weeks, but what's called a ER diagram, or entity relationship diagram. This is how we're going to use what we're going to use, among other things. It is a free tool that we can use online. We get to create a table, relationships, and eventually we want to create the database types, data types. So let me see if I can show you an example that I created before. So here is one example, a very simple example. So here are 3 tables that I created, and I'll show you how to do that in the weeks coming up. But here's a student table, school table, course table. Here is a one-to-many relationship. Here's a one-to-many relationship. And here are the column for the keys that we're going to be using. Here is the column for different data fields that we're going to be using. But here's the column that we're going to specify what kind of a data we are going to restrict, so that we can have a secure and only appropriate data for each one of these data fields. But anyway, this is just a preview of what's coming. I'll show you how to use all this, okay? But anyway, so that's a quick overview of the lecture material for this week, and hopefully this is useful for you. And this is the end of the lecture video. Take care. Bye-bye.